All right, here's the schedule over the next few weeks here on the Pete the Planner Show. There is a podcast right now. How do you know that? Well, you literally downloaded this and are listening to it. So there is a podcast this week, which is Tuesday the somethingth. And then next week, there is no podcast. There is no radio show. There is no live stream. We are on hiatus. And then the next week, there will not be a Friday live stream. We will do it midweek like we are right now, which is a Wednesday. That's the housekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a full crew in the house today. We've got the regulars, Kristen Elanius and Damian Dunn. Kristen, welcome back to the program.
I am glad to be back. I feel like I've been away a lot here of late, so...
Yeah, you're like a big celebrity get for us. We have to like make time for us, please, Kristen and Co.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Kristen and Company.
Yeah, and speaking of and Co, hello, Dame.
Has she been gone? I haven't really noticed.
Oh,
I watched the show. I know that's not true.
Wow. All right. I'm going turtleneck today. I just thought I'd give a little visual for the podcast listeners so they can lose their appetite.
Kristen, are you going to ask the question?
What?
Is it turned in?
The turtleneck? I was told to not give turtleneck tips on the radio because I'm no fun. So I will not be asking.
When I was donning this tortoise neck this morning, I thought to myself, I'm not kidding. No. Should I turn the turtleneck in? And in fact, in my bedroom mirror, I stood in front of it. I turned the turtleneck in, and it looked utterly ridiculous. And so I turned the turtleneck back out, and there we go. Grant says someone should get me a hairless cat to pet because I'm like a Dr. Evil meets number 2. I think I actually like more than number 2 than I do Dr. Evil, but Grant, I feel you. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Danza is currently live with the Money Guy show. And now, wait, Danza, you do other shows? Wait, how's that not the takeaway of this?
I'm a little hurt, really.
No, that's all right. I'm sure it's a better show. Okay, let's do the show. With it's an email question extravaganza?
Sure.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. In 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And what'll end up happening is what's going to happen right now to you in your ear holes. We're going to answer these questions. Like people email us questions, they're financial. We answer them because we know what we're doing. And then we don't try to sell you things, which is amazing and rare. Frankly, it's quite rare. So joining me, as always, Kristen Elanius. And by always, I mean sometimes she's here. Kristen Elanius, Director of Education at Your Moneyline. Hello, Kristen.
Hello, Pete.
And my fellow bald, Damian Dunn, Vice President of Advice at Your Moneyline. Hello, Dame.
Good day, Pete.
All right, so here's the question. Dear Pete and or Dame and or Ms. Elanius, whoever is on this week. See? You feel seen and heard now, Kristen?
The girl uses her PTO like twice.
We have a high school junior and also a graduating senior who will be headed to college in the fall. So we have a high school junior and a graduating senior who will be headed to college. Okay. For the purpose of this note, let's focus on the senior, and then we'll apply the learnings to his sister. Not sure what sale of personal data to blame, but the junk mail credit card offers for Lincoln have already started to arrive at our home. Would like to help him establish credit in the right way. A few notes for your context as I set up our questions. Number 1, he has traditional checking account with traditional savings account tied to it. We have access to these accounts and can move money around as needed. So when he goes to college, we could help him cover costs by simply moving into his checking account and use his debit card as needed. We don't intend to pay him an allowance while he's there, but if the needs arises, we can help a brother out. Second, we've been burned by fraudulent charges in the past, and so I'm inclined to want him to have a credit card, not just his debit, that allows for a bit more flexibility protection if there's fraud. In the event of a problem with the debit card, he could lean on the credit card or vice versa. You get the point. Number 3, we have our credit frozen. Mom, dad, and both kids. So any move we make will require the pain in the neck, hassle of unlocking credit temporarily. No big deal, but frustrating. Yeah, 90 seconds of your time. And by 90 seconds, I mean, what, 4 minutes or so? Here comes the questions. How should we consider helping a young person going off to college establish credit while educating on the slippery slope of credit cards? 2, we recently saw a social media post about adding your youngster as an authorized user on your own credit card. I can see the potential benefits, but frankly, we only have one card that we use for expenses, and I don't want the bills for his charges. Blah, blah, blah. No offense on the blah, 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 but the rest was just blah, blah, blah. Number 3, if you support the idea of him having a separate student credit card, what tips do you have for him and us to consider in terms of banks? And number 4, finally, I assume you would support the idea of refreezing the credit after we open a credit card. Is there any good reason for a college student to have unfrozen credit? Those are all the questions. Well, that's the show, everybody. Good night. Okay, amazing setup from a former listener of the year. Right? Amazing questions. Kristen, what sticks out to you?
The thing that sticks out to me is what considerations when you're establishing your first card. Because if you're accustomed to being like a one credit card type family, that's how you grew up, that's what you intend to do. And then once you've had that card for a while, you don't want to close it because that could shorten the length of your credit history. So choosing that card is pretty important, in my opinion.
You know what? I hadn't considered that. Dame, what else have I not considered?
I'm just trying to figure out why his dad wants to cheat him out of the experience of just signing up for a card and getting a t-shirt or a 2-liter of Mountain Dew out of the deal.
I've told you this story before. My brother-in-law, one of his first jobs was signing people up for credit cards at a local department store. And if they signed up, they got a picture frame that had a bear on it. And on the box, it just said poly resin bear frame. And so whenever I think about my brother-in-law, I think about him ruining people's credit over poly resin bear frames. Yeah, Dane, that is the ubiquitous college experience. I think there's a rather easy answer to this one, in my opinion, but now I feel like Kristen's going to give a better answer. So let's do Hollywood Square style. Okay. I'll give a bad answer. Dame, you are officially the judge here. So Kristen and I will each present our case, and you have to say who has the better methodology. Kristen, would you like to go first or second?
I would like to go second, please.
Oh, of course you would. I think the young man gets a secured credit card, secured by a deposit of cash, somewhere between $500 to $1,000. I recommend that he puts one category of spending on said credit card and repays it every month. I like one category of spending because once you say, well, I'll put this on it and this on it and this on it, this is where you get out of control. So maybe fuel, or for those that have hair care needs, those sorts of things. But that would be my recommendation. Secured credit card, $1,000 limit, if-ish, 500, doesn't really matter. And I would absolutely not make him a authorized user on their credit card. And I would refreeze the credit. You definitely don't want a college student with unfrozen credit. That is my submission to the court. What say you, miscellaneous?
Unfortunately, for argument's sake, I pretty much exclusively agree.
Yes.
But my initial thought was, if there's a card that you like better that maybe doesn't have a secured option, could mom and dad technically act as the secure of that card and just say like, hey, you have this would be your get out of jail free card? I'm assuming they trust their kid. Maybe you can't trust your kids. I don't know. I don't have any kids. So maybe you can't trust him. I don't know. But I do agree, one category of purchase, and I would actually push that a little bit further and make it something that is not fun to buy. I know that in college, my sister and I both did this. Like, gas for our cars is the only thing that we would put on our credit card, because there's no risk of mismanaging that spending, because nobody likes to go to the gas station and put 50, 60, whatever dollars in your gas tank.
All right.
What does the judge say?
I think I have to side primarily with Pete on this one, probably because he was first and you chose poorly, Kristen. You went second, whereas if you would have said this first, you likely would have pulled out the win here. But Pete's reasoning was sound. You added some nice color to the end, but Pete gets the square.
You know, Kristen, I would like to dig in a little bit on the idea of like having his parents secure it or whatever, or you know, sign for it, co-sign, if you will. I don't like it. But I mean, look, you're parsing words at that point.
I guess I should clarify. I don't mean formally be the co-signer. I mean, it's his own thing. He's the only one that's on the hook. And then, but if your kid runs up a $500 balance on his card because he doesn't understand really the implications of that, you have to know, are you going to bail him out or not? Because if they are going to bail him out, then is there really a point in the secured card option if he has more options outside the secured card space? I haven't shopped for a credit card in a long time, so that could be a moot point. It's just something to consider.
Yeah, I agree with your very initial statement, which was like, make sure whatever you're getting is something that you want to have for a while. And so that actually makes a secured card not the best option, right? Because then are you going to get rid of the secured credit card? Are you just going to keep making deposits? Can you transition a secured credit card to unsecured? I don't actually know the answer to that. Dame, do you know that?
I think you can, but I don't know for sure.
If you can find one that you can transition from unsecured or secured to unsecured, I would consider that. I don't know. I mean, here's what I know about this kid, by the way. He's an incredibly responsible young man. And so I don't think trust is the issue, but I think there can also be training wheels, and the training wheels is the secured nature of it. And I think Dame can attest, as a parent, you trust your kids, but you also don't want to put them in situations of which, if they mess up, that you're going to have to pay for it, you know?
Yeah, and I don't want them to feel like they need to cover any potential mistakes by delaying coming and asking for help and making potentially a small problem into something bigger as well.
All right. Well, there we go. There's the answer. That's the only answer in the world. It's not, but I hope you like it. If you want your email answered, then, well, by God, you got to email us. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. That's Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com, and Kristen and company will answer that. Coming up after the break, a giant bonus that you and I didn't get, but this person did. What should they do with it? That's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I don't know why I'm generally more surprised by my good outros than I am at my bad outro. Like, I have a bad out and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Then I have a good one. I'm like, wow, look at that, man. Oh, yeah.
I feel like you've been on your game with the outros lately, though.
I don't know what it is. I agree. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Every once in a while, I'll start. I can see it in his eyes. I'll start too early. And Dave goes, oh boy, a 35-second wrap. Oh boy.
Those just make me nervous because I'm like, is he gonna like maybe ask me just one more thing because this is a long outro? So I'm like ready just in case. But sometimes you just run with it. So
I am gonna do that in the next segment.
Ask me something at the last
with
second.
5 seconds left.
Yeah, absolutely will. He's done it to me.
That's how I'll end the segment. Just absolutely.
In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show, answering your money questions. So we got one. We had several today. This one is from a person. I believe the person's name is Hennifer. If I believe the J is Hennifer. Hi, Pete, Kristen, and Damien. You know, Dame, every time I read your name, I'm like, man, I wish people called you Damon. You know?
Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
How do you recommend making the most out of receiving a lump sum? Okay, so before we go much further here, Dame, do you want to give like a privilege check here for us?
Please be aware that this situation is not indicative of the situation that everybody faces, and we realize that there is a large amount of privilege, likely due to this person's hard work in their lifetime. But don't be turned off by the numbers.
And possibly luck and opportunity.
Sure.
And like you said, don't be turned off by the numbers. Please don't. Try to learn something from it. If you need to subtract one of the zeros or two of the zeros, then go right ahead. Seriously, that's your warning.
Seriously.
My spouse and I have a young kid and live in a fairly affordable Midwest city. West Des Moines sounds lovely. When my spouse and I met in our early 20s, I was making $25,000 American dollars, and he was making $35,000 American dollars. Now, in our late 30s, we don't talk anymore. Oh, wait, nope, that's not the email. I make between $150,000 and $170,000 annually, and he makes somewhere between $80,000 to $90,000. Talk about a glow up. Before we had a kid, we worked extra jobs and saved aggressively to pay off our student loan debt and then pay off our cars. We've never had any credit card debt. We've always been contributing at least the match to our 401ks. And a few years ago, when our salaries rose, we were able to start maxing out to the IRS limit on both 401ks annually. And together we max out our HSAs and our DCFSAs. That's a big acronym. Every year as well. And we put $5,000 a year into our kids' 529 plans until we got the lump sum of our emergency fund was around $30,000. Okay, so far, if I'm being honest, everything's pretty, I don't want to say it's standard, but this is approachable.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Stable, reasonable. It's definitely on the upper end of what we might expect, but it is not out of line.
We currently owe about $130,000 on our mortgage. Okay, are you ready for this? This is my favorite part. This is my favorite part. Not the big number I'm going to tell you in about 10 seconds. 8 years remaining on the 10-year refi at 2.125%. 2.1 is as low as I've heard.
Cries in 5.5.
Oh. Last year, I received a major bonus of around pre-tax, $400,000 American dollars in addition to my regular
Unreal.
salary. And we feel pretty far outside of our depth to feel like we know what we're doing, everything that we should do with that money. After getting the lump sum, we interviewed several financial people based on referrals and picked one to help us invest our money. We moved $150,000 of the sum into an investment fund and are focused on keeping the other same habits we had before, including all the contributions. No plans to buy cars or houses or anything crazy. We know we have too much sitting in our 3.6% interest savings account. Still 120 grand. But with the industry that we both work in being so volatile, we're being extraordinarily cautious for the next few months. Are there blind spots we should think about? Is it going to take a while to feel like we know what we're doing? We just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. All right, so there you go. Wow. What, Dame, you get the first shot at this one.
First of all, congratulations. And, I think you've taken a lot of very, very appropriate steps into what you should have been doing with this money. I don't think I would have recommended anybody approach it any differently. The thing that stands out to me is that you've got a large chunk of money sitting in a savings account and you're concerned about it. I am not, because of the very next statement that follows that. The industry that we are both work in being so volatile. We all went through some really rough financial times over the last few years. And we saw through your money line, the idea, the concept of what people were comfortable with in emergency funds stretch drastically and over a very short period of time, from 2-3 months. Trying to get somebody convinced that 3 months was an appropriate amount was sometimes really hard pre-pandemic. During pandemic, 3 sounded pretty darn reasonable. And we saw that stretch to 6, 8, 12 months regularly. So if you are an industry that is volatile, I don't think you are out of line to have that, and don't feel guilty about it. You're doing great with your contributions anyway. And you just gave them likely a nice boost with what was left over from that pre-tax bonus. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I would put a stamp of approval on this.
Before I make a very, very weird, arguably uncomfortable and nuanced statement, Kristen, do you want to go?
Sure, I would love to. Can I ask a question that might be a hot take? Yes?
Yeah.
Could they be behind from a retirement perspective?
Oh, I'm looking at balances here.
Well, because they were making a significantly lower wage than they are now. And while they've always contributed, they were contributing in their early working years at a much, 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 much lower rate. So if you in retirement want to live the lifestyle that you're living now, is it possible that that money should be earmarked for retirement?
Well, that's a really interesting point for people who had lower wages and then blah, blah. I mean, because what you're saying is doctors, wait a second. No, there's no doctors getting a $400,000 bonus. But anyway, don't doctors go through this exact same thing where they are instantly behind on retirement savings for 5 to 8 years?
Sure.
So
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it's possible.
if I'm doing the math right now and I'm making some educated guesses based on what they've shared, they're putting away
17%.
yeah, I was going to come up with numbers. It was going to,
No.
17 to 20%. But 17% isn't counting. I don't think it's counting HSAs, DCFSAs, 529s, anything like that. So
Mm-mm.
they're putting away roughly 20% of their income right now. And they just got a nice boost with what they had. So I don't know. We could run the math if we had, more time to do it, but we don't on this segment.
All right. I don't even remember what my really hot take was.
Bummer.
Sorry.
I gotta look through what's going on here. Oh, yeah, I remember what it was. Okay, listen. Here's the thing. I love situations like this. Obviously, it's always nice when $400,000 tricks into your house. But this is why when people prepare for success by having the right habits and having the right vehicles going, then when these sorts of things happens, it actually sets you up for life. And so here's my example of the difference here. The fact that there was the muscle and the mechanism of the contributions happening, then this idea of, if you're good with money and you get more money, you're going to be good with that money. So that's what happens. But if you don't tend to make good financial decisions, or you wait until you have money to start saving money, then when this extra money comes in, then you end up not knowing what to do. So that's the first part of what I have to say. The second part is where it gets weird. This is why I honestly prefer situations like this, and I find them a lot more stable than those of like professional athletes. Having worked with professional athletes with their finances in the past, where there's these bursts of money over oftentimes a 4 to 8 year period, and the numbers, you add another zero on here, by the way. This is a much more sustainable financial life than something 10 times the magnitude of it. And that is why I love the financial business. And to take that point one step further, subtract this, make this 1/10 of this story. The same is true. If you can create the structure and have the mechanism, and Social Security comes and fills in the gaps, you can have a sustainable life too. Is that not right, Kristen?
Absolutely, it is.
Coming up after the break, more of the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner.
Awful. You gave a little bit of the presentation I gave yesterday, and I don't even think you watched it. So that was kind of creepy.
What are you talking about? I didn't watch it.
Oh, well.
I mean, I didn't watch it. I totally didn't watch it.
Way to support the team, man.
Well, you know,
Kristen, you absolutely should have started launching into a 5-minute explanation. He forced him to cut you off.
No, because he has to edit the show really quickly before he leaves.
Okay.
I tried to find you yesterday, by the way, to see if you wanted to go to McAllister's for lunch, but you were
Me?
You were
What
gone
time?
now. After I was done yesterday. I think you were at lunch. I just went in to see because obviously I had to have McAllister's. So
What did I do? Yeah, I can't remember about yesterday. But yeah, well, that stinks. I would have gone over there and bought you an iced tea the size of Dame's head.
no kidding.
What? Dame, you didn't like that? Made a face?
Seems
My head's probably bigger than
Kinda-
Damien's
kinda-
anyway. It's fine.
it's a new challenge. We'll get measures out, tape measures out, and
Please don't.
All right. Okay. Who has the biggest head on the show? And are we going to measure
Not
from
figuratively,
No, we already know that.
literally.
But literally the biggest, and we're going to measure from like what, right above the nose, like top of the nose,
Sure.
circumference around. All right. So place your bets. Dame, who has the biggest head on the show?
I think it's me.
I don't want to get my feelings hurt because it's gonna be me.
You know what? I think it's Christy's big head.
I
Do
have
you?
a big head.
Yeah, she looks like it's like a Macy's Thanksgiving balloon.
Can you wear normal snapbacks?
Oh, great question. And what
Nor-
setting are you on?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Mine. All the ones I have are just like like they slide. So I don't know.
That sucks.
1980s golf course hat there.
with
Mhm.
the brass clasp.
Yeah.
Bingo.
That's so true. That's so true. Is it a Schlesinger?
That means nothing to me.
Exactly. So you don't have a hat with the little pegs you can go grab right now and show us the setting?
I don't think so. I think all 3 of the ones that are in my rotation slide.
Dame, where do you go?
One of the last 2 usually.
Oh,
Your head might be bigger than mine.
holy cow. I go 2. So, if it's perfectly overlapped, I go 2 over.
Baby head.
Dame, you've got a giant nugget. I've never realized that.
I tried to tell you.
Okay, so here's the question at hand. Kristen, this is just for you.
Okay.
If we filled Dame's head with dimes,
How many?
how much money would we have?
I have no idea.
No, I mean, we got to know.
I'll try and find an app that will estimate the volume of my head for you, and maybe we can figure this out.
Kristen, turn your head to the side.
No.
Come on.
No.
This
you
is just a financial show. Can you please? This is a financial show. I
Don't
need
do
to
it.
see the
Not doing it.
profile of your
Don't
head.
do it.
Not
Don't do
doing it.
Look at my head. It is tiny. I have like a tiny.
Your head is small, yeah.
I feel like HR could get involved after the show.
It's
She's
fine.
out there. Should I
Yeah.
grab her?
She doesn't.
I mean, grab her. You know what I mean by grab.
Yeah.
her. Holy
Unhinged.
moly. Okay. So what are we doing? We're doing the update on Ian.
I mean,
we're
you
doing-
told him you were gonna do that last time. So.
I don't remember the original email, but I guess we'll read a second email and figure it out.
See, is there enough to make a whole segment out of the
Yes, Caitlin, I am wearing a turtleneck.
Ah, there we go.
Now your sister's going to jump in. Caitlin, how big a head does your sister
no.
have?
Caitlin and I both have huge heads.
All right, Caitlin, do you have a giant head?
Yes.
It's so big.
If everyone's listening from the other room, they don't know what's going on, and they're just hearing me going,
Yeah.
Caitlin, do you have a
Confused.
giant head? They're like, how's our boss? What's going on with him today?
Must be recording radio.
Must be being himself. Okay. This is giant head radio. All right, let's get started. In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. When people email us emails, people email us questions at askpete@petetheplanner.com. We answer them. And sometimes we have to fill in the gaps, right? Because sometimes the question is missing something. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had an email from a gentleman by the name of Ian from Chicago. And he has a follow-up email to us that I think maybe explores some of the things we discussed. Now, if you're like me and you're tuning in and it's like, wow, maybe the context for the first email would be helpful. I feel the same way because I don't remember it. So we're going to try to get through this together, and maybe my big-headed co-hosts can figure out how to fill in the gaps with their giant heads. Hey there, Kristen and company. Wow, y'all took my question. I did not realize that Ian was from Kentucky. Thank you for sorting through the small novel of an email and making my freaking week. Fantastic. Side note, Dane was right. I get Ian enough to make explainers like that not uncommon. Love how you're old. Anyway, enough compliments for us. But you asked me a question back. For savings at the time of my original email, excluding investment and retirement accounts, I had $30,000 in my account. Price is Right rules. Pete wins. Including in there is $12,000 in my emergency fund, and the rest is earmarked for other savings and donating goals. Currently working towards a 6-month uninterrupted lifestyle emergency fund, and hope
Love
to
it.
be there in the next few months, which is why I didn't mention in my novel. I want to pause there for a second. I don't know is that a thing? It sounds like a thing. As a 6-month uninterrupted lifestyle emergency fund. Someone has clearly made that a thing.
Well, that's what the two of you prefer. We don't call it that.
Yeah, I'm saying I think this is I'm making more guesses here about Ian. I think this is a consumer of personal finance content, and someone out there is saying 6-month uninterrupted lifestyle emergency fund. And I think that's interesting.
I guess I think a lot of people have the idea or the concept that an emergency fund could be used, or when they're building an emergency fund, it has to be replacing income dollars and not certain expense dollars. So I would guess that a number of folks wander into the concept and starting an emergency fund with the idea that they are replacing income for an uninterrupted lifestyle fund, not just an emergency fund.
Okay, well, let me dig on that though. Kristen, if I lose my job and that's an emergency, right?
Mhm.
And so I go to my emergency fund. Like, how practical is it to be like, well, business as usual, let's go get bubble tea? Like, like, are you going to do that for 6 months?
If you've put in the work in the past to be able to sustain your lifestyle, I mean, is there anything wrong with that? And it's probably also come out of this place of like personal finance experts. We are so guilty of this, the three of us too, of just being like, yeah, save 3 to 6 months for an emergency. Like, what does that even mean? So, Ian has just taken the extra time to define what that means for Ian. Go,
What
Ian.
if Ian is, we know he's young. What if he's in a profession that there are transitions every once in a while where you can expect to maybe have a couple months off every once in a while, but you're going to get hired again. You're going to find another source of income on a pretty regular basis. And he just wants to live his life as uninterrupted as possible.
Travel nurse.
Oh, can we talk about travel nurses here in a second?
Sure.
Can we put a timeout? Do either of you know much about travel nurses?
I actually just helped one of my best friends with her budget because it's hard for her as a travel nurse. Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Kristen was right about the debt's origins. Despite the relatively recent change in gross income, I've carried a balance on my credit card since I graduated college as a way to fill gaps and live outside my means while I was making much less. I've struggled over the years with wiping out my credit card debt at the expense of other financial security goals, including my emergency fund. But my credit card has always remained a high priority. Last year, I went about 3 quarters without accruing interest. That's good. That's actually great. One of my goals for this year is to wipe out the residual debt by June, just in time for the student loan interest freeze to expire. As a bit of an update, I used a portion of the returned funds, minus the market losses for the from last year, to pay my taxes, and the $1,400 left over I sent to my credit card balance. And so we end there. So that's the rest of the update. Anything else worth chewing on there, lady and gentlemen?
Go, Ian.
Did a great job not consuming that into his lifestyle and not leveraging that money appropriately.
Travel nurses. I have several cousins, I think at least 3 that are travel nurses from the same family. There are 10 kids in that family, and 3 of them, I believe, are travel nurses. And they're all over Instagram having a great time. They're very good looking, which I don't know if that matters other than to say it probably helps to have fun when you're very good looking. I wouldn't know. Anyway, they seem to be like travel nurse. You go make some coin, live some life, try out a new area. And what's the financial reality of that, Kristen? Because you just put together a budget for someone.
The thing that was hard in the case that I helped with is that she wanted to make sure that she had enough downtime between jobs to feel like calm when she went to the next one. So like she lives in Indy, and so she was going from like Kentucky to Indy to North Carolina. And then when she's not working between those jobs, how do you plan for that? And so that was the structure of her and I's conversation, is like, well, you decide how long you want to be off. What does it take for me to not have a change in my lifestyle? Much like what Ian was describing. She saves that during her 12-week contract or whatever, so that she can take that time off to move to the next place.
Yeah, Dame, what other general professions and industries have unusual incomes like that? Realtors always jumps out to me as just like a highly unusual frequency of income. Travel nurse. And then you get into things like food service workers and school districts and bus drivers, transportation people in school districts. Like, what else?
There's, even the basic ones that we would think, like a car salesman is going to have very fluctuating income based on the state of the economy. And especially if you're selling different brands, they may become less affordable, and you might have all of your income dry up real quick. So there's people who are on commission basis, depending on the economy, could be at risk for having very, very uneven income.
Yeah, Kristen, what jumps out to you?
Commodities.
Commodities.
If you raise animals for a living, if you farm
Oh,
for a living, very, very cyclical as far as income and expenses. Huge swings usually.
Rick Swank offers Alaskan commercial fisherman. What was the show? The Biggest Catch?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, that was the
Deadliest catch.
Deadliest Catch. The Biggest Catch
Oh,
is
yeah.
like a weight loss show where you catch. I don't.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I think for many of us, we strive for high incomes, but the frequency of which you are paid can sometimes impact that. I don't know why this turned into a professional athlete show today, but back in the day when I used to manage money for professional athletes, for my football players at least, they got paid 17 weeks in a row, which were at the time were the 17 weeks of the season. And then for 35 weeks for the rest of the year, they'd got no compensation. So yeah, in some cases, people were making seven figures, and many of the guys I was working with, they were making mid six figures. People who had never really had a job above an hourly wage, so they didn't have a lot of experience managing money. And then you get 17 giant paychecks in a row. First one shocks you. Second one is like, I can't believe this is true. Third one is, let's go. And then on number 17, you're like, how am I going to make it another 35 weeks? And so the frequency of which you are paid is wildly important in terms of financial success.
It's a really interesting question. Is the if it's the same amount, is the frequency of pay or is the amount of pay the more determining factor of your success? It's a good question.
Ooh,
The free
blog post, blog, web blog. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. This is the best part of the show, everybody. And by the best part of the show, I mean it's where Dame gets to talk the most. And Kristen and I just get to listen to all the little jokes that he wrote into his news stories. And he doesn't think we like them because we never mention them, but we really love them. And it is our favorite part of the show. So that's coming up next, News with Dame, as well as biggest waste of money of the week. If you want to be on this radio show, you cannot be, but your question can be. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. That's Ask Pete, all one word, at PeteThePlanner.com. Kristen, is there any other way for people to be on the show?
No.
That's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner.
I was
Might
not
be a
paying
new thing.
attention.
This is the new thing. It's the new thing.
I was literally looking at my calendar, was not paying attention.
Well,
Note to self.
I caught you slipping.
You did. Big time.
Pete's trying to make Dame's head even bigger with those compliments. Do we know Jason Brown? I mean, I know he's on here a lot, but I'm like, wait, do I know Jason Brown? Because he's very funny.
I don't know.
Jason, do we know each other? I mean, I'm not trying to be weird or anything. I just like, it's such a common sounding name. It's like one of those things I probably know 4 Jason Browns. I don't know.
Dan's comment is my favorite one of the show.
Totally not the same, but I legit struggled going from paid every other week to twice a month. It's practically the same and yet not at all.
It's not the same.
So, Kristen, this is an interesting topic because you took me to school on this. You did. When we switched, why are you guys both laughing? Because Dame, do you remember this?
Because I was so glad it wasn't me.
Sorry.
Yeah. So we switched to pay frequencies here. Last year? I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We went from 26 pay to 24 pay. And I was like, just plan for, I got out in front of it. I was like, hey, just want to let you know. But then I think I said something stupid, like, shouldn't be that big a deal. You'll be fine, in a rather dismissive way. And then Kristen was like, let me stop you right there. And then you read me the truth.
I don't know if I was quite so aggressive. I probably went, hey, maybe, possibly, this is possibly something sort of that maybe you should consider. I'm sure that's how I approached it.
I felt attacked.
Sorry.
I didn't feel attacked. No, it was fine. It was appropriate. And by the way, be as aggressive as you like. I have a turtleneck on. I can take it. Turned outwards.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's not the same thing, especially when you have a long pay period and you're someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, like so many people do. If you get an extra weekend on a pay period and that's when you do your grocery shopping, that can literally break your budget.
heard. I know people hate when people say that.
Excellent.
All right, let's carry on. Just practicing. Okay, here we go. In biggest waste of money in 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, right here on the Pete the Planner Show, is the escape knife. Yes, that's right. Hey, everyone on the. Sorry, here we go. The escape knife. It's small enough to overlook. That's by design. The Gearward escape knife is meant as a last resort tool in the event of a kidnapping. Its blade is made from a rust-proof ceramic that's 10 times stronger than steel, with a 1.25-inch cutting edge that's just long enough to be useful. Made in Canada, so it's kind. It has a low profile that's easy to slip behind the label of your jeans, into your shoes, or anywhere else you don't think it can be found. For those watching here on the program, the live stream, it is about the size of a dime, oddly enough. It's what would you say, Dame? Across, it's 2.5 to 3 dimes across?
Yeah, probably.
All right. So the escape knife. Kristen, you are, as we all know on this show, the worst guesser on the planet when it relates to items like this. And so I'm going to let you guess first. What do you believe this knife to cost?
$36.
Jeez, that is oddly specific. Dame?
This is really, really good because knives in many cases are drastically overpriced. So I'm going to go with $68.
Okay, a little bit of a trick question here. It's not actually that expensive. It's $20. But here's the bigger point. Is it worth the paranoia of thinking you're going to get kidnapped to every day to prepare for your kidnapping? Is the spending $20 on that paranoia really worth it? And I would say that is not a healthy way to live in these United States in which we live in. Do you view that any differently, Dame?
You would end up absolutely using that for something else and dulling the blade or breaking it, and it would become worthless, and you'd have to spend another $20 on another kidnap-proof knife.
Can we do a little knife chat here for a second? I saw something the other day I wanted to run by people who might care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dame, Kristen, I don't know where you line up on pocket cutlery, but I know Dame's big in the world of utilities in his pants, So, Dame, I was at an outdoor, like a camping store, sort of things that have like Patagonia and in Merrill and these sorts of brands, right? And I'm not a knife person, as you know this. And I go over there, and I'm looking at knives, like they're kind of cool to look at, but I mean, I don't really want to buy any. And so I look at this knife, and I'm looking at the guy that comes over. He's like, "Look at that!" And I'm like, "Hey, look at that!" And he goes, "Check this out!" And he pulls it out, and it's a beautiful looking knife. He presses a button, and it pops up like a switchblade, like you're gonna get cut by a guy in a black leather jacket with greased back hair. And I was like, "What, sir? I think his name was Trevor. Sir, that's a switchblade." And he's like, "Well, things have changed." He says, "It's not. It's called like a pop-up knife." Dame, do you know about these switchblades?
Yeah, it's not technically a switchblade. It's an automatic knife is what they're called. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of companies that make them. Benchmade, Kershaw, and there's some. Those are the big name ones. But yeah, absolutely. You want me to bring one down to the office?
Yeah. But here's the thing. I would like one of those, but it feels like I don't know. It feels dangerous.
I mean, in your hands, it probably is.
Yeah, I'm lethal. Dame, what's in the news this week?
It's never been easier to trick yourself into paying $250 for a pair of jeans because Apple rolled out its buy now, pay later service yesterday, marking the tech company's latest foray into financial services. The feature Apple Pay Later, that's the name, Apple Pay Later, was introduced to randomly selected Apple Pay users. Sure, randomly.
Okay.
And will become available to more customers over the next few months. The program allows consumers to split purchases into 4 payments spread over 6 weeks with no interest and no fees. People using the iPhone's wallet app can borrow anywhere from $50 to $1,000 using Apple Pay Later. The service can be used to make online and in-app purchases with merchants that accept Apple Pay. Users will be required to link a debit card to their loan repayment method, and credit cards won't be accepted for payments. This is what I found interesting. Apple Financing, a unit of Apple, will be handling the credit assessment and lending for the program. Apple Financing will begin reporting Apple Pay Later loans to U.S. credit bureaus starting this fall, meaning they will be reflected in users' credit profiles. Do you think people will use this in order to build credit scores?
Oh.
Well,
no.
You don't think so?
Not to
As the primary objective, Dame?
No. Just as an excuse on why this is okay, because I think about the email from the first. If it was just a normal college student who didn't have a credit card but had access to this feature potentially and linked a debit card, yeah, sure, why not try and build my credit this way?
Maybe
She's
this is a
laughing at me.
unique. Well, no, it's just that maybe it's a unique experience as a young woman, is that you literally get pitched that at the register at a department store, is like, open a store credit card for these. Like, that's already a pitch. I don't know. Does that not happen to the two of you when you buy stuff places?
As an old man, no, I mean, it happens. I have to say this. I think this is genius from Apple. I mean, just absolutely genius. And I think it will have very positive impacts on what they are trying to accomplish. I also think it's going to be a consumer nightmare.
Yes.
I mean, we already have, we're being quite frank here. If there's $1,000 iPhone that people typically finance through their payments of their cell phone bills anyway. So that's already one version of this. And I think what Apple said is, like, well, why are we having a middleman through this? Like, why not just take it straight to consumers? And that's what it feels like, at least.
Telling you, Apple's well on their way to being their own bank.
You said it, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yep.
What else is in the news, young Damon?
To keep up with rising costs, many young adults turn to a likely safety net, their parents. From buying groceries to paying for their cell phone plan or covering health and auto insurance, 45% of parents with a child over 18 provide them with at least some financial support, according to a recent report by Savings.com. On average, guessing game time, folks, these parents are spending more than X dollars a month helping their adult children make ends meet.
All right.
Dame.
I'm going, well, he knows.
I know. Yeah, I'm reading it.
Okay.
What's wrong?
Well, I think we all know, but go ahead, Pete.
I don't know. I sent the article. I didn't read it. $600.
Okay. Kristen said she read it. So go ahead, Kristen.
Oh, we're checking her memory.
I think it was $1,400.
$1,400 a month helping their adult children make ends meet. And parents nearing retirement contribute the most to their children, to the tune of about $2,100 a month on average, while only putting $643 a month into their retirement accounts.
It's hard to talk about this without sounding judgmental. We probably should have started there. Yeah. I don't think any of us are judging or mocking or anything like that, but the numbers are still a little bit shocking if we're all being honest here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've seen reports like this saying that the lack of appropriate saving for people reaching or nearing retirement. And there have always been a number of reasons put forth, but this one's a little surprising.
You know what's weird is my kids get older, my daughter being 14 now, getting closer to the reality of having to come to a decision point of whether to support her as a young adult. My what was once a flaming hot Cheeto take on all of leave him alone. It is softened, but not because I plan on helping her. I think it's just yet another example of me as a young personal finance expert, formerly, giving these laser hot takes when, in fact, there's a little bit more nuance once you experience, a young teen, right?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen this study done 5 years ago and compared numbers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Because of how the pandemic and everything changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's all we have time for the show this week, right, Kristen?
Right.
Sending you good vibes. Good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner. This is the show.
I was paying attention that time.
Might be my new favorite part of the show.
I like it a lot,
I hate it.
which is why it's great. Okay. Well, in the spirit of love and timeness, I don't know what timeness is. I'm leaving. Goodbye. I am going to edit the show, put it up. We will not have a show for a week, everyone. So binge watch The Money Guy. Do we know The Money Guy?
I
And
never
that's
heard
a
of him.
Danza.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, look him up. Actually, let's look him up right now and let's send everyone to him for a week. All right. So The Money Guy podcast. Okay, hold on. The Money Guy show. Okay, here we go. Moneyguy.com. Go there and listen to their show for the next week. We are paying it forward. If you like their show better than us, that's fine.
Ouch.
That's fine. Don't come back. We don't need you.
Or go listen to Andy Hill's podcast. That's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah. Money and Marriage, right?
Money, Kids, and Marriage, I think.
Money, Kids, and Marriage.
Yep.
You don't forget the kids.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. That's it. Chris and Dame, goodbye. Everyone else, stay getting money.